Hi,
Hello.
good to be with you.
Nice to see you again for our daily reflection taken from the YouVersion Bible.
Let me talk over you too.
Okay. Okay, well you can read it then.
Where is it?
2 Timothy chapter 1.
verse 7. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love and self-discipline. But
Yes.
I want to read it in context.
Okay.
And this is written to Timothy. It says, for this reason, I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power and love and self-discipline. So do not be ashamed of the testimony about our Lord or of me, his prisoner. I think it's good to put that in context because often we forget that it's a very personal word to Timothy.
Young friend.
Although he does make it plural and says, for the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love and self-discipline. So it does apply to all of us, but it was a very specific word to Timothy, who obviously at this point, for whatever reason, is feeling a bit insecure with himself, maybe a bit overwhelmed with what's going on, with the job God's given him to do. Sounds like he was finding it difficult because Paul was in prison. And also at this point in time, the gospel was changing people's lives, but the authorities did not like it at all. And so they were suffering incredible persecution as well. So therefore, there was an insecurity. Have I really believed the right thing?
Yeah.
Am I really doing the right thing? So
You can
the context,
understand that, can't you? Yeah.
So the context is important for us to remember. And I think it's good for people today to remember that in our situation where being a Christian is becoming less and less the norm, particularly in Australia, even if people call themselves Christian, which is a minority here in Hobart, that not many of them go to church.
Yeah, it's a very sobering thought because it's very different to the world that my parents grew up in, and where everyone went to church on Sunday and it was just the normal thing to believe in God and understand some of the cost of Jesus dying on the cross. But that's not a normal understanding these days.
No.
So it shifted our world.
Shifted dramatically in our lifetime, and even a bit before. So for me, that meant that when I grew up and went to art school and was mixing with my peers, most of them who may have had some sort of association with the church in some shape or form, had rejected it completely. I was the odd one out very much as a believer.
Thankfully, there was one other Christian student.
There was a few others. There was a few others, not just the one. But all of us were a bit timid at that point in time because of it. Some of them were better than I was, but I was certainly very timid and at times embarrassed to be a Christian. I'm not sure that I'd worked out what it all meant in that context, and so I was very reserved with my faith and how to talk about it. And I'm not the only one. I think there's many of us who are in that place.
Yeah.
But it's good to remember that, though, that I would read this verse at those times and feel actually a little bit guilty.
Okay.
Because I wasn't that. It wasn't that. Although I would say now it would be the exact opposite, where I'm very confident and not embarrassed at all. But I was for a long time.
Yep. So when you read, for the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, you didn't embrace that.
Well, I'd look at it.
Because it wasn't happening in your life.
It didn't happen didn't feel like it was happening in my life. So therefore there must be something wrong with me.
Okay. What would you say to someone who said that now, if they were going to art school and facing similar things? How would you encourage them if they were reading this verse?
Well, I would encourage them by talking through with them what was the source of why they didn't feel as if they had anything to say or why they felt that way. For me, I think it was because my what I'd learnt through school and through Sunday school and church and all the rest of it, I didn't feel was strong enough to talk against or talk into those situations. While I did believe, I didn't have a framework in which to be able to, even in my own mind, justify why I believed. And so it's taken me a long while in my own mind. So therefore, for me, it was dealing with the source of the insecurity. And I think, therefore, it would be the same for anyone today. What is the source of your insecurity? And let's work that through. Because God has given us a place where we don't need to be timid, where we can be powerful, where we do have self-control. But how do we find that spot? That would be what I'd talk about.
Yeah.
And I've just rambled on a lot.
You have, but it's good to talk.
Okay.
Good to catch you today. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.